'Twas the night before the meeting, and all through the hall not a mason was stirring, no whisper at all. The aprons were hung in the wardrobe with care, in hopes that the worshipful master'd be there. The brethren were nestled, all snug in their beds, while visions of rubric danced inside their heads. With gavels and working tools placed in a row, they dreamed of the symbols they'd all come to know. When out of the south there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my chair to see what was the matter. Away to the tiler I flew like a flash, ensuring our secrets weren't opened in rash. The moon shone above, casting silver so bright on the lodge and its columns, resplendent with light. When suddenly, there, to my wondering sight, a sleigh full of brethren emerged from the night. With a driver so wise, in regalia fair, I knew in a moment it must be the chair. More rapid than eagles, his officers came, and he gestured and called them each by their name. Now deacons, now stewards, now wardens so true. To the east and the west and the south with you. To the lodge room we go, prepare all with care. Lay the trestle board straight, and the stewards be fair. As ashlars that shine under craftsman's keen eye, they polished their work as they reached for the sky. So into the lodge room the brethren they flew, with a sleigh full of jewels, and the master there too. And then in a twinkling I heard at the door the sharp rap of 3. Was it masonry law? As I straightened my collar and turned right around, through the portal the master came in with a bound. He was dressed in fine robes from his head to his toe, with an apron as white as fresh fallen snow. A bundle of symbols he carried with flair, and the light of his wisdom shone bright in the air. His eyes, how they twinkled, his demeanour so steady. His gavel was firm, his compass was ready. His square shone with wisdom, his plum hung with care, and the jewels of his office sparkled so rare. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his task, instructing the lodge with no need to ask. With a flourish of signs and the tools of the trade, he reminded us all of the progress we'd made. Then raising his hand, as he gave the command, "Let brotherly love reign throughout the land." And raising his arms with an effortless flow, he gave the grand sign so our spirits could grow. Then sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a cry, "Keep to the landmarks and aim for the sky." And I heard him exclaim as he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all seek the light." Welcome again to From the Quarries. This being the festive season, tonight's presentation, Is Father Christmas a Freemason?, is a short and somewhat light-hearted look at what St. Nicholas can teach us as Masons. It was written by Brother David Downey of St. Trinian's Lodge number 2050 of the Isle of Man, and it appears to be quite recent, so if I've caused any unintended copyright violations, I apologise profusely and can be contacted if you'd like the video taken down. In any case, I hope you enjoy it, and a very Merry Christmas to all.
Good evening, and welcome to tonight's presentation from the Quarries, an archive of Masonic lore.
Is Father Christmas a Freemason? I have a very serious question to put to you all. I would like to raise it with you and then do some detective work, examining the evidence that might lead us to answering it. It is a most important question that I am sure you have often asked yourself, and relates our craft to the wider society in which we live and concerns several major issues of this season. This is a very serious question. Is Father Christmas a Freemason? Let us consider the facts of this case. Of whom does this remind you? A worthy gentleman who is, we must admit, getting on a bit in years, and is perhaps a little overweight, who bears a very distinctive costume as the badge of his activities, who provides opportunity for friends and visitors to meet in fellowship, who is surrounded by secrecy and mystery, dispenses goodwill and the charity of gifts all over the world, avoiding ostentatious public display while doing so, and is there doing it year after year. Well, fellow detectives, you must admit that this description could fit either Santa or a Freemason. But this is merely circumstantial evidence. We need some proof. Let us start with his movements on the evening in question. All the reports have him coming from the North Pole. As the sun rises in the east to open and enliven the day, and with him needing to finish the world before dawn, then he would have to begin in the east and move towards the west. Therefore, Father Christmas must begin his journey at the northeast corner of the world. This, of course, is exactly what we do with an entered apprentice. Similarly, you would assume he would finish heading for home, which would place him in the northwest corner at the end of his work, to give his salute to the world and leave. Convincing proof, you must agree. But think too, he undertakes this great journey to provide the gifts but once a year, and I am sure that any brother treasurer will agree that this is exactly the frequency with which most brethren provide the gift of their charity to the lodge. And the secrecy, the mystery? Those of you who are parents, remember, what was the worst crime that an older child could commit at that time of the year? To tell the younger ones the secret of Santa, to break the faith that they should have kept. And I am sure your punishment of them pointed out that they were void of all moral worth and totally unfit to be received into the dinner table, but to be sent to their room for destroying something that was so good, so worthwhile, and so innocent. Surely all this evidence shows us beyond doubt that Father Christmas is a Freemason. He practices brotherly love and relief. We are happy to meet him and the Christmas season, and sorry to part. All the details, his wearing of a uniform, the rituals that happen year in, year out, the fact that he is a male. But on a more serious note, brethren, the way the whole Christmas season has developed and is practiced have many things in common with Freemasonry, and we can learn much about each from the other. For instance, where did the figure we call Father Christmas come from originally? What is his background? Father Christmas, or Santa Claus, or St. Nicholas, has elements of pre-Christian myths and legends which developed through the Middle Ages by being built into the great Christian story of God's wonderful gift to the world. By the 18th and 19th century, these details were formalized into the character that we still have today. His stylized uniform, his way of working, his ritual activities and sayings. This all sounds very Masonic. The pre-Christian legends of Solomon's Temple, the pyramids, Pythagoras and so on were developed through the Middle Ages by the great Christian cathedral builders, and then formalized in the 18th and 19th centuries into the uniform, the work, the rituals that we use today. St. Nicholas was actually a 4th century Turkish bishop who had originally been a rich nobleman. One of the stories about him was that he had helped a poor man who could not afford to pay for a wedding for his 3 daughters. St. Nicholas climbed onto the roof and threw a handful of gold coins down the chimney, and these coins fell into the girls' stockings that had been hung up by the fire to dry. The girls were then able to marry well and lived happily ever after. He has been considered the patron saint of poor children ever since. The legend became very popular in Europe, especially the Netherlands, where it was mixed with elements from the pagan Yule or midwinter festivals. St. Nick became Santa Claus, who would arrive on December the 6th, St. Nicholas's Day, mounted on a white horse, and visit children to inquire about their behaviour the previous year. Good children would be rewarded, and bad ones punished. The night before, children would leave a pair of the shoes or clogs out, filled with hay and carrots for the horse. In the morning, these would be found filled with sweets or small presents. These traditions were taken to America by Dutch settlers, but it was the famous poem by Professor Clement Clark Moore, which begins, "'Twas the night before Christmas and all through the house," which settled most of the details into the Santa figure we know today. Many of these details, such as the reindeer and their names, the flying sledge coming down the chimney, were first brought together in this poem, but Professor Moore took them from old traditions from as far afield as Finland and Siberia, and they have stuck and become a single story. You can see how similar this is to the creation of our ritual and ceremonies. While these also certainly include many elements that are ancient folklore, they were put together quite deliberately by identifiable people with a specific aim, to create an impression in the minds of the brethren taking part. Like the Santa legend, the details may be fictional. They may come from many different sources. They may even be inconsistent with each other, but that does not matter. It is the impression that all of them create as an entirety that is important. Would you deny all the good that the Santa story achieves, all the happiness it creates, just because it is a story? Of course not. And this is the real linking of Father Christmas and Freemasonry. Why do we have Christmas, and why do we have Father Christmas? We celebrate religious beliefs about the birth of goodness and hope for the future. We reaffirm the belief that people are basically good and can develop into loving, caring, helpful, supporting friends to each other. We look to a new year where things can be better. We do this at this season, whether we are celebrating the Christian Nativity or the Jewish Hanukkah with its lights and gifts and story of peace, or the Hindu Diwali with its festival of lights and gifts of sweets and toys, or even if we hold no formal religion except the pleasure of seeing a child's face transfixed with wonder and delight. And why are we Freemasons? Because we believe that there are important things like goodness and hope for the future, and that men can develop into loving, caring, helpful, supporting brethren to their families and each other. We not only look to a future where things can be better, but we see it as our role, as free and accepted or symbolic Masons, to help to build that future. So, I feel I can safely say that Father Christmas is a Freemason. Not only does he show so many of the signs and tokens of being one, but he brings us a message that we, as Freemasons, can heed for the whole year. Peace on earth and goodwill towards men. Merry Christmas to you all.
For more Masonic podcasts, videos, music, texts, and artwork, visit fromthequarries.com or subscribe to our YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook accounts by searching From the Quarries.
In the heart of a snow-dusted town, under a canopy of shimmering winter lights, stands the grand, ancient Masonic Lodge, a bastion of secrets and stories, and, tonight, the unlikely epicenter of a deliciously baffling caper, the case of the vanishing Christmas pudding. Here, amidst the hallowed halls, where history whispers from every shadowed corner, our intrepid lodge members find themselves knee-deep in a Yuletide mystery. Who spirited away the festive dessert? Was it the crafty treasurer, the sneaky secretary, or, perhaps, the junior warden, notorious for his sweet tooth? Join us as we don our detective hats and magnifying glasses, diving into a world of Masonic secrets and intrigue, where every nod and handshake might just hide a clue. This isn't just any Christmas conundrum, it's a merry mystery that would have even Columbo scratching his head. Within these storied walls, where echoes of history and tradition mingle, our Masonic Lodge stands as a testament to centuries of fraternity and wisdom. Here, amidst the solemn grandeur and the silent tales of the ages, a festive spirit now prevails. Every corner of the lodge is adorned with festive cheer. Green garlands intertwine with the gilded square and compasses, while golden lights cast a warm glow over ancient Masonic symbols, blending the joy of Christmas with the dignity of Masonic heritage. And at the heart of this celebration, a tradition revered, the making of the ceremonial Christmas pudding, a ritual as rich in symbolism as it is in flavour, passed down through generations of Masons. It's more than just a dessert, it's a symbol of unity and the shared joys of the brotherhood. But, in a twist as unforeseen as it is unwelcome, this cherished custom faces an unprecedented challenge. As the final touches are being added to the festive feast, a collective gasp sweeps through the lodge. The Christmas pudding, the centerpiece of our conviviality, is nowhere to be found. In an instant, the laughter gives way to murmurs, the merriment to mystery. This isn't just a missing dessert. It's an affront to a hallowed tradition, a jovial jolt to the very spirit of our Masonic Christmas. Who could disrupt such a sacred continuity, and why? As the evening's joy hangs in the balance, it falls upon us to solve this conundrum, to search for the clues amidst the camaraderie, to unravel a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside a lodge. Join us in this quest to restore the pudding and the spirit of our Masonic Christmas. Amidst the stir of our Yuletide conundrum emerges a figure of resolve and respect, our esteemed Director of Ceremonies, Brother Jonathan Hargrave. A Mason of notable standing, Brother Jonathan is revered not just for his adherence to Masonic principles, but also for his keen eye and unwavering dedication to order and propriety. With years of experience guiding the lodge through its most significant rituals and events, Brother Jonathan possesses a unique blend of wisdom and wit, qualities essential for unraveling the mystery at hand. Known for his meticulous attention to detail and a knack for discerning the subtlest of clues, he is the perfect candidate to lead this festive investigation. Tonight he assumes a new role, that of a detective in a case most peculiar. With the ceremonial gavel in one hand and an investigator's keen sense of duty in the other, he steps forward to navigate the labyrinth of laughter and lore to uncover the truth behind the missing Christmas pudding.
Brother Worshipful Master, as the leader of our lodge and guardian of our traditions, your account is vital to unraveling this Yuletide mystery. Pray, tell us, where were you and what transpired in your eyes on this eventful evening?
Indeed, Brother Jonathan. The night was a tapestry of joy and brotherly love, a celebration of our cherished traditions. As the evening began, I was immersed in my duties, greeting brethren and guests, ensuring the spirit of fraternity was as warm as the Yule log burning beside us. As the evening wore on, I took my place at the east of the lodge, overseeing the festivities. My eyes, though often drawn to the splendid display of our Christmas feast, remained vigilant to the harmony of our gathering. It was not until the hour grew late and the time for the unveiling of the Christmas pudding drew near that I noticed a stir among the brethren. I left my station to inquire, only to find the space where our treasured pudding should have been glaringly empty. I assure you, my heart was as heavy as my gavel at this discovery. But, as a Mason and a leader, I trust in the light of truth to reveal the path. And I have faith in your abilities, Brother Jonathan, to lead us to that light.
Brother Senior Warden, your role in orchestrating our lodge's events is unparalleled. On this evening of unexpected twists, might you shed light on your observations and actions?
Brother Jonathan, the evening was a whirlwind of tasks and joys. As you well know, my duties had me darting from corner to corner, ensuring every detail of our grand celebration was in perfect order. The atmosphere was vibrant, the brethren in high spirits. I was particularly attentive to the banquet preparations, the culinary highlight of our Masonic Christmas. I recall last seeing the Christmas pudding, resplendent and aromatic, awaiting its moment of glory. As the evening progressed, my focus shifted to addressing the needs of our guests and brethren, ensuring all were well catered for. It was during these moments, immersed in the fulfillment of my duties, that the unthinkable occurred. Upon hearing murmurs of dismay, I rushed back, only to find the space where our prized pudding had been conspicuously bare. I was as astounded as I was perplexed. Such an occurrence is most unbecoming and quite unprecedented in my tenure.
Brother Junior Warden, known for your amiable nature and oversight of our lodge's festive merriment, what insights can you offer into this puzzling affair?
Brother Jonathan, as custodian of our lodge's social harmony, I was wholeheartedly absorbed in the evening's cheer. My role had me flitting amongst our brethren, ensuring all were well and merry. The lodge was alive with the spirit of fellowship, and I took great joy in contributing to this atmosphere. I remember pausing a moment to admire our festive spread, the Christmas pudding standing proudly as its crowning jewel. But as the night unfurled, my duties kept me amidst our brothers, sharing stories and laughter. It was during these moments of hearty camaraderie that the whispers of something amiss reached my ears. Rushing to the scene, I was met with the sight of an empty table where our beloved pudding once sat. To say I was stunned would be an understatement. Such a jest is most uncharacteristic of our solemn traditions.
Brother Senior and Junior Deacon, your roles in our lodge are complementary, working in tandem to guide and assist. Together, you provide a unique perspective on this evening's unfolding events. What can you tell us about the mystery at hand?
Brother Jonathan, as the senior deacon, my duties had me traversing the lodge.
And as the junior deacon, I was by his side, ensuring all entrances and exits were properly attended.
The evening was proceeding smoothly, our tasks performed with the precision and care befitting a Masonic celebration.
We both admired the Christmas pudding, a magnificent sight indeed, during our routine walkthrough.
However, amidst our duties, a sudden commotion drew our attention.
Leading us both to the discovery that the prize pudding had mysteriously vanished.
Such a turn of events is most unexpected in our well-ordered celebrations.
Brother Treasurer, your vigilance over our lodge's finances and resources is unparalleled. In this tale of unexpected twists, what light can you shed from your vantage point?
To Brother Jonathan, as the guardian of our lodge's treasury, my evening was consumed with ensuring the financial integrity of our Christmas festivities. Every expense, including the ingredients for the Christmas pudding, was accounted for to the last penny. It was during my meticulous audit of the evening's costs that I first heard murmurs of the missing pudding. Initially, I dismissed these as mere distraction from my duties. However, the persistence of the chatter compelled me to investigate. Upon arriving at the banquet area, I was confronted with the reality. The centerpiece of our financial outlay, the Christmas pudding, was indeed absent. As perplexing as this situation is, it disrupts not just our celebration, but the careful balance of our planned expenditures. It is most irregular, and in my many years of service, quite unprecedented.
Brother Secretary, with your keen eye for detail and your comprehensive records, what observations have you made regarding this evening's peculiar incident?
Brother Jonathan, as the one who chronicles the events and proceedings of our lodge, my night was dedicated to capturing the essence of our Christmas celebration. Every speech, every toast, meticulously noted for posterity. In the midst of my duties, the word of the missing Christmas pudding reached my ears. Initially, it seemed a trivial interruption to the evening's agenda. However, as the seriousness of the matter became apparent, I set aside my ledger to join the brethren in their consternation. The absence of the pudding was not just a missing dessert, it was a break in our ceremonial continuity, a gap in the narrative of our festive gathering. Such an occurrence, while unusual, presents a unique entry in our lodge's chronicles. The resolution of this mystery, I believe, will be a tale worth recording for years to come.
Dear viewers, you've heard the accounts, seen the clues, and witnessed the perplexity among our esteemed brethren. The moment has now arrived for you to don your detective hats and ponder over this festive riddle. Was it the worshipful master, leader of our lodge, caught by surprise? Or the senior warden, whose meticulous event planning might have had an unexpected twist? Perhaps the amiable junior warden, often near the festive spread, knows more than he lets on. Could the harmonious deacons, ever present and observant, have played a part in this conundrum? Or was it the treasurer, with his keen eye on the lodge's finances, who saw an opportunity? Maybe the secretary, recorder of all events, decided to add a chapter of his own to our lodge's history. Now it's your turn to unravel this mystery. Cast your vote, share your theory, and guess who is behind the disappearance of the Masonic Christmas pudding. Is it one of our officers, or is there a twist awaiting that none could foresee? Make your decision, and all will soon be revealed. Remember, in the spirit of Masonic brotherhood and Christmas cheer, every guess brings us closer to the light of truth.
Brothers, the mystery of our missing Christmas pudding has been solved, and the revelation is as heartwarming as it is unexpected.
An expectant hush falls over the room as the brethren wait to hear who is responsible. But before the director of ceremonies can open his mouth, an unexpected voice echoes across the assembly. It is the Tyler.
My fellow Masons, I confess it was I who took the pudding, but not for reasons you might imagine. In the spirit of our Masonic principles of relief and brotherly love, I chose to donate our festive treat to a local charity, aiding those less fortunate during this season of giving. I hope my actions, though unorthodox, embody the spirit of Christmas and the Masonic ethos. It is in giving that we receive, and in serving others that we truly celebrate.
And so the true spirit of Christmas and Masonry is restored. A very Merry Christmas to you all. In the ancient charge on behaviour, it is stated, "No private piques or quarrels must be brought within the door of the lodge, far less any quarrels about religion or nations or state policy, we being only, as Masons, of the universal religion." Note the phrase, "we being only as Masons of the universal religion." Is it the answer to my query, and therefore makes any further discussion a mere beating of the air? Another word for universal is Catholic, and there are religions claiming to be that. If Masonry is a religion, is it then among one of the world's religions? If so, what is its relation to them?
Good evening, and welcome to tonight's presentation, From the Quarries, an archive of Masonic lore.
Section 1. Points of Agreement. A. All the great religions of the world have the externals of religion. They have altars, sacred books, prayer is offered, and reverent actions are demanded from their adherents. So too has Masonry. In every degree there is an altar. The sacred book is prominently displayed and frequently quoted. Prayer is offered, and, when the name of God is mentioned, an attitude of reverence is demanded of the brethren. B. In all religions, whether they be of the lowest or the more advanced, standards of character are set forth to be aimed at by their followers. For example, Pythagorean communities enunciate, "Purity of the soul is the only divine service," or "God has no place on earth more akin to his nature than the pure soul." It is a far cry from Pythagoras to the indigenous Australian, but the indigenous Australian too has a standard of character placed before him after his initiation. For example, he must show consideration towards the aged, the sick, and the infirm. Ceremonies of initiation, wherever they may be, are regarded as of the greatest importance, and through them social ties of tribal kinship gain coherence and strength. Masonry also has a standard of character for its members after initiation. I quote from our ancient charges. Charge 2. A Mason is to be a peaceable subject to the civil powers wherever he resides or works, and is never to be concerned in plots or conspiracies against the peace and welfare of the nation. Craftsmen are bound by a peculiar tie to promote peace, cultivate harmony, and live in concord and brotherly love. Charge 5. All Masons shall work honestly on working days, that they may live creditably on holy days, and the time appointed by the law of the land or confirmed by custom shall be observed. Charge 6. A Mason is not to use any unbecoming language upon any pretext whatever, but to pay due reverence to his master, wardens, and fellows, and put them to worship. Masons may enjoy themselves with innocent mirth, treating one another according to ability, but avoiding all excess, or forcing any brother to eat or drink beyond his inclination. Masons are to salute one another in a courteous manner. Masons are to act as becomes a moral and wise man. Masons must consult their health, and by not continuing too late or too long from home after lodge hours are past, and by avoiding of gluttony or drunkenness, that their families be not neglected or injured, nor they disabled from working. Masons are to cultivate brotherly love, the foundation and copestone, the cement and the glory of this ancient fraternity, avoiding all wrangling and quarrelling, all slander and backbiting, not permitting others to slander any honest brother, but defending his character and doing him all good offices, as far as is consistent with honour and safety, and no further. C. Death is an element of universal experience. The question, "If a man die, shall he live again?" is as old as the book of Job, but the affirmative answer is much older. The earliest human remains in Europe imply some provision for the dead, and it did not occur to the peoples of the lower cultures all over the world to doubt the reality of some kind of continued existence. Like all religions, Masonry insists on a belief in a life after death. Ritual concerning the dead is common to all religions. In the funeral rites of a Chinese family, a paper house with paper furniture and large quantities of paper money may be buried for the endowment of a departed member in the next life. On the Gold Coast in the last century, an observer saw fine clothes and gold buried with the chief, and a flask of rum and tobacco ready to his hand. Nowadays, When a priest is buried, his body is clothed in his priestly vestments. When a Mason is interred, his regalia, or part of it, is buried with him. The outward act is retained, but not its implications. Section 2. I have stated the above somewhat at length, not only to show that Masonry has much in common with the religions of the world, but in order to ask a number of questions arising from it. Do the externals of religion constitute a religion? Is belief, even a belief in God and in a life after death, religion? Is morality religion, and the whole duty of man and the whole service of God? In short, what is religion, and what is the relation between religion and morality? Section 3. I am taking no single religion as standard for the whole of the human race, nor am I now concerned with what are true and what are false religions. Dr. Johnson might declare that there are two subjects of curiosity, the Christian world and the Mohammedan world. All the rest may be considered as barbarians. Workers of past generations may assert that savages had no religion because they had no Father in heaven and no everlasting hell. These attitudes are now abandoned and everywhere regarded as unscientific. In the 17th century, an Oxford scholar, Edward Herbert, the brother of Holy George Herbert, revolting against the doctrine that all the world outside the pale of the Church was doomed to eternal damnation, examined the recorded facts about religion among the Greeks and Romans, the Carthaginians and Arabs, the Phrygians, the Persians and Assyrians. And the conclusions he came to were that the principles of religion were 5. 1. That there is one supreme God. 2. That he ought to be worshipped. 3. That virtue and piety are the chief parts of divine worship. 4. That we ought to feel sorry for our sins and repent them. And 5. That divine goodness doth dispense rewards and punishment both in this life and after it. He held that these truths had been implanted by the Creator in the minds of man, and their subsequent corruption produced the idolatry of antiquity. 200 years later, i.e. in the middle of the 19th century, through the efforts of Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace, this theory that religion consisted of a body of doctrines which must be true or false, reached by natural reflection or imparted by supernatural revelation, was abandoned, and the conviction became general that, whatever may be the occasional instances of degeneration or decline, the general movements of human things advance from the cruder and less complex to the more refined and developed. Religion was seen to be one phase of human culture, expressing man's attitude to the powers around him and the events of life. Theologies may be many, but religion is one. A common element or purpose may be traced through all. Of necessity, religion expresses itself in acts, but these acts are important, not simply as acts that can be recorded and observed, but because of the world of thought and feeling which lie behind them. Here are the bases of religion, and from them development takes place. A. Thought. In the performance of his acts, the worshipper's interest is aroused. At first, this may be vague and indefinite, but thought begins, and, as it advances, it may express itself through hymn and prayer, through myth, history, and prophecy. A sacred literature begins to be created, and the utterances of poet, sage, lawgiver, and seer are collected. Hence the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Vedic hymns, the immense literature of Brahmanism, early and later Buddhism and Hinduism, the compositions of the Persian prophet Zarathustra, the Old and the New Testaments, and the Koran. B. Feeling. Mr. Ward Fowler gives the primitive meaning of religion as the feeling of awe, anxiety, doubt, or fear, which is aroused in the mind by something that cannot be explained by man's experience, or by the natural course of cause and effect, and which is therefore referred to the supernatural. Another recent definition states that religion is a collection of beliefs, practices, or personal attitude concerning reality, personal or impersonal, unique, multiple, or collective, but in some way supreme, upon which man feels himself somehow or other dependent, and with whom he desires to enter into relation. In some cases, this belief may be so indefinite that religion and superstition overlap. But whether it be twisted into degraded forms, or whether it assume the loftiest spirituality, it will be found that wonder, awe, and reverence are inherent in them all. In its highest form, this results in a response to the divine self-revelation and a life of loving fellowship with God. Section 4. How does Masonry measure up to this? 1. It possesses no formal creed. Beyond expressing a belief in God and defining him as the glorious architect of heaven and earth, and his character under certain names, or in one sublime word, Masonry has no statement of religious belief. 2. Though it may express itself sometimes in hymn and prayer, Masonry has no sacred literature of its own. It makes use of the literature of the world religions. 3. A Mason acknowledges his dependence upon God and places his trust in him. In all times of difficulty and danger, in whom do you put your trust? In God. But in any of the ceremonies through which he passes, does a Mason feel he is entering into relation with God and desires fellowship with him? Does he at any time express the desire to do so? I think not. In certain parts of the 18th degree, in one ceremony of the Order of Knights Templar, and of the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre of St. John the Evangelist, all Christian degrees, there is a near approach to worship as expressed in wonder, awe, and reverence, but it is accidental. These degrees lack just that essential of religion, viz., a conscious dependence on and a loving fellowship with God. In all Masonic ceremonies, the emphasis is laid upon man's relation with man, not man's relation with God. Section 5. At the beginning of a Mason's career, he is told that Masonry is a peculiar system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols, and that the grand principles upon which the order is founded are brotherly love, relief, and truth. Is morality, then, the whole duty of man and the whole service of God? What is the relation between religion and morality? We know that religion expresses itself in sacrifice and devotion, and in a certain kind of conduct which we call morality, but the beginnings of morality can no more be discovered historically than the beginnings of religion. The foundations of morality lies in a social usage. When any custom is established with sufficient strength to serve as a rule demanding observance, so that its breach evokes some feeling, the seed of morals is germinating. No group, however small, no society, however crude, can cohere without such customs. These customs become strengthened by repetition, and thereby gain the power of authority, so that ultimately impulses and private interest must be subordinated to a rule and conformed to a standard of behaviour. But, though it is possible that religion and morality may not have started hand in hand, and their alliance disbanded, and morality claimed total independence, as, for example, in Russia today. Yet, whatever their origin, generally religion and morality have marched together, and religion has supplied the principle on which law is regulated and morality decided. The extreme is reached when religion becomes the all-powerful element, and people, like the Hindus, eat religiously, drink religiously, bathe religiously, dress religiously, and even sin religiously. The following quotation from Dr. Otley, I think, puts the case plainly. The end of religion is that holiness without which no man shall see the Lord. But religion is something wider and deeper than morality, the conformity of human life to divine law. It lies beyond morality as its source and motive power. With that, Masonry agrees, for all workings in all lodges is done under a symbol denoting the Most High, and, before a candidate can learn of the peculiar system of morality of Masonry, he must first state his belief in God. Section 6. So then, to my question. Is Masonry a universal religion? The word universal has many meanings. As applied to Masonry, it might have the Catholic sense of quod semper, quod ubique, et quod omnibus. But I think the claim of Masonry to be universal lies in fact that though it is not necessary for all people, indeed, by its constitution it eliminates half the people of the world, it is to be found all over the world. And I think I have made it clear that Masonry is not a religion with its fundamental idea of fellowship with God. It inclines strongly towards humanism, the religion of humanity, but, by its reliance upon the Most High, it is more than humanism. Its own description of itself is best: a peculiar system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols, with the emphasis that divine aid is necessary to carry out its principles. So mote it be. St. John the Baptist and St. John the Evangelist and their respective feast days occupy a significant place in Masonic tradition. When did this tradition develop? Why these particular saints? And what is the significance of the feast dates? Tonight's presentation is undated and anonymous, but attempts to answer these questions and more. I hope you enjoy it.
Good evening, and welcome to tonight's presentation from the Quarries, an archive of Masonic lore. By history, custom, tradition, and ritualistic requirements, the craft holds dear the days of St. John the Baptist on June 24th and St. John the Evangelist on December 27th. A lodge which forgets either forfeits a precious link with the past and loses an opportunity for the renewal of allegiance to everything in Freemasonry symbolized by these patron saints. No satisfactory explanation has as yet been advanced to explain why operative Masons adopted two Christian saints when St. Thomas, the patron of architecture and building, was available. St. John the Evangelist apparently came into our fraternal system somewhere towards the close of the 16th century. At least, we find the earliest authentic lodge minute reference to St. John the Evangelist
in Edinburgh in 1599, although earlier mentions are made in connection with what may be called relatives, if not ancestors of our craft. For instance, the Fraternity of St. John existed in Cologne in 1430. St. John's Masonry is a distinctive term for Scotch lodges, many of the older of which took the name of the saint. In many old histories of the craft is a quaint legend that St. John the Evangelist became a Grand Master at the age of 90. It seems to have its origin in a book printed in 1789, in which one Richard Lineker of Wakefield wrote certain strictures on Freemasonry, although his paper is really an eulogy. Whether this writer really continued a tradition or invented the tale which was seized upon by Oliver and kept alive as legend, impossible though it is, no man may say. Historians believe that only after 1717, when the Mother Grand Lodge was formed, did Freemasons generally hold festival meetings on either or both June 24th and December the 27th. The real explanation of Freemasonry's connection with the Saints John is not to be found in the history of the craft, but in the history of religions. For the festival days of the two Saints John are as old as the ancient system of worship of fire and sun. Travel backwards in imagination to an unknown date when the world of men was young, when knowledge did not exist, and the primal urges of all humanity were divided between the satisfaction of bodily needs, hunger, thirst, warmth, light, and the instincts of self-preservation, mating, and the love of children. The men of that far-off age found everything in nature a wonder. They understood not why the wind blew, what made the rain, from whence came lightning, thunder, cold and warmth, why the sun climbed the heavens in the morning and disappeared at night, or what the stars might be. All primitive people tried to explain mysteries in terms of their daily lives. When angry, their emotions resulted in loud shouts and a desire to kill. What more natural than to think thunder and lightning the anger of the unknown who held their lives and well-being in his hands? Ancient man bundled the enemy he conquered out of his cave into the open, where he froze or starved or was eaten by beasts. What more natural than to think the wind, the rain, the cold, a manifestation of an angered, unseen presence? The greatest manifestation of nature known to our ancient ancestors was the sun. It was always present during the day, and its near kin, fire, warmed and comforted them at night. Under its gentle rays, crops grew and rivers rose. The sun kept away the wild beasts by its light. The sun made their lives possible. Sun worship and fire worship were as natural for men just struggling into understanding as the breath they drew. Early recognized facts must have been the sun's slow travel from north to south and back again as the seasons waxed and waned. And so Midsummer's Day, the longest, became a festival. It was the harbinger of harvest, the birthday of a new life, as the winter solstice was significant of the end of the slow decline of the sun, the beginning of a new time of warmth and crop and happiness. Through countless years, in 1,000 religious cults, mysteries, in 100 climes and lands, priests and people celebrated the solstices. We know it not only from history and the records of ancient people, often cut upon stone, but from myths and legends, the story of Ceres and her search for her daughter Proserpine, the allegory of Isis, Osiris and Horus. Ancient custom is taken from people with difficulty. Even today, we retain customs the origin of which is lost to us. We speak glibly of Yuletide at Christmas, without thinking of the ancient Scandinavian god Yule. The small boy avers, "By golly, not knowing that he offers his hand or goal if he speaks not the truth. Those who think it bad luck to break a mirror only continue a savage belief that a stone thrown in water which mirrors the face of the enemy will break his heart even as the reflection is broken. If such ideas persist to this day, imagine how strenuously a people would resist giving up a holiday celebration which their fathers and their fathers' fathers before them had kept for untold ages. So it was when Christianity came to the world. Old feasts and festival days were not lightly to be given up, even by those who put their faith upon a cross. Hence, clever men in the early days of Christianity turned the pagan festivals to Christian usage, and the old celebrations of summer and winter solstice became the St. John's days of the Middle Ages. As the slow years passed, those who celebrated thought less and less of what the days really commemorated, and became more and more convinced of their new character. Today, hardly a Freemason gives thought to the origin of St. John's Day in winter, or knows his celebration of St. John's Day in midsummer preserves a touch with caveman ancestors. It was a common custom in the Middle Ages for craftsmen to place themselves under the protection of some saint of the Church. All the London trades appear to arrange themselves under the banner of some saint, and, if possible, they chose one who bore fancied relation to their trades. Thus, the fishmongers adopted St. Peter, the drapers chose the Virgin Mary, mother of the Holy Lamb or Fleece, as an emblem of that trade. The goldsmith's patron was St. Dunstan, represented to have been a brother artisan. The merchant tailors, another branch of the draping business, marked their connection to it by selecting St. John the Baptist, who was the harbinger of the Holy Lamb, so adopted by the drapers. To say with certainty why Freemasons adopted the two St. John and continued to celebrate days as principal feasts, which were once of a far different significance, is not in the power of any historian as yet. But the fitness of these two is obvious in our system if we consider the spiritual suggestion of their lives. St. John the Baptist was a stern and just man, intolerant of sham, of pretense, of weakness, a man of strength and fire, uncompromising with evil or expediency, and yet withal courageous, humble, sincere, magnanimous, a character at once of heroic and of rugged nobility. Of him the greatest of teachers said, "Among them that are born of woman, there hath not arisen a greater than John the Baptist." Of St. John the Evangelist, the disciple whom Jesus loved, 1,000 books have been written, and student has vied with minister, teacher with historian, to find words fitly to describe the character of the gentle writer of the fourth Gospel. No attempt at rivalry will here be made. Suffice it that St. John the Evangelist is recognized the world over as the apostle of love and light, the bringer of comfort to the grief-stricken, of courage to the weak, of help to the helpless, of strength to the falling. Freemasonry is wise in gentle wisdom which passeth that in books, when she takes for her on both the saint who foretold the coming and the saint who taught the law of the Son of Man who walked by Galilee. The question, "From whence come you?" and the answer, "From the lodge of the holy St. John at Jerusalem," has puzzled many. None have phrased the simple explanation of the inner meaning of this with more beauty and clarity than Brother Joseph Fort Newton, he of the golden pen and the voice of music. There is no historical evidence that either of the two saints of the Church were ever members of the craft, but they were adopted as its patron saints, after the manner of former times. A good manner it is, too, and they have remained so in Christian lands. Lodges are dedicated to them instead of to King Solomon as formerly. So naturally there came the idea, or ideal, of a sacred lodge in the Holy City presided over by the Saints John. No such lodge ever existed, in fact, and yet it is not a fiction. It is an ideal, and without such ideals, our life would be dim and drab. We do not know just when, or just how, Freemasonry adopted the Saints John. Their days are the Christian adaptation of pagan festivals of a time when man, knowing no better, worshipped the sun as the supreme god. So when we celebrate our festival days on June 24th and December 27th, we walk step by step with ancient ancestors, worshipping as they worshipped, giving thanks as they did. They to the only God they knew for the glory of summer, the beginning of the period when the days lengthened. We to the great architect of the universe, that our gentle craft took for its own the austere but loving characters of two among the greatest of the saintly men who have taught of the Father of all mankind. For a deep dive into the history, philosophy, and traditions of Freemasonry, subscribe to From the Quarries. You will find hundreds of lectures, presentations, shorts, and other Masonic works written by Freemasons for Freemasons. Visit FromTheQuarries.com or YouTube at From the Quarries.